The clinking of glasses slowly faded away. All 150 guests turned toward my mother. She stood up, elegant in her silver gown, holding her champagne flute. A perfect smile was on her lips. "To my daughter, Lily," she began. Her voice was clear and carried across the silent ballroom. She spoke about childhood, about hope. Then her tone shifted, just a little. "We are also tremendously happy that Lily has finally settled." She paused, letting that awful word hang in the air. "She has chosen a simple, stable life with Ben, and we support her." I felt my smile freeze on my face. My new husband's hand tightened around mine. The word settled echoed in my head. It wasn't a blessing. It was a public announcement that I had married down, that I had accepted less. The warmth of my wedding day vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp humiliation. The rest of our reception felt like a strange dream. People glanced at me with pity. They shook Ben's hand a little too firmly. My mother, Eleanor, floated from table to table, laughing lightly. She acted as if she had given a beautiful toast. Ben and I cut the cake. We danced our first dance, but the joy was gone. Later, in our hotel suite, I finally broke down. I sobbed into my hands, the delicate lace of my wedding dress now wet with tears. Ben held me. He didn't say much. He just rubbed my back and whispered, "We knew she could be cruel. But today, she wanted an audience." His quiet anger was a mirror for my own shattered heart. Let me tell you about myself. My name is Lily. I am not a dramatic person. I am a planner. For 6 years, I have worked as a project coordinator for Kingston Builders. My job is to make sure big construction projects stay on schedule and on budget. I manage tough contractors and detailed spreadsheets. I am good under pressure. But with my family, I was always the quiet one. I was the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed things over. That version of me, I realized that night, did not survive my mother's toast. My real life was nothing like my mother's story. Ben was not a simple man. He was a landscape architect. He owned his own thriving business, designing gorgeous gardens for resorts and museums. He came home with dirt on his hands and light in his eyes. Our house was filled with plants he grew and books we both loved. My job was steady and important. We were saving for a house. We were happy. But to my mother, success was only about flashy cars, country club memberships, and a certain last name. Our quiet happiness looked like failure to her. Months passed. The sting of the wedding faded to a constant ache. Then, in early December, my mother summoned us. She called it a family financial meeting. We sat in her spotless living room. She got straight to the point. "Now that you're married, we must protect the family's interests," she said. She looked at Ben, not at me. "I've had a post-nuptial agreement drafted. You will both sign it before the new year." She slid a thick document across the glass coffee table. It was a contract. It felt like a declaration of war. Ben and I took the agreement home. That evening, we read it together at our kitchen table. With each paragraph, my stomach sank. The agreement said any future gifts or inheritance from my family were mine alone. That seemed fair. But then it demanded Ben's business assets be kept completely separate forever. The worst part was a clause about lifestyle maintenance. It suggested my family could have a say in our spending if they thought Ben wasn't providing enough. It was a document of pure control and disdain. It screamed that she did not trust him or my choice. My professional brain switched on. At work, I would never sign a subcontract without a lawyer reviewing it. This was 100 times more important. I looked at Ben's hurt face. "We are not signing this," I said firmly. "Not without our own lawyer." He nodded, relief in his eyes. "I don't want her money, Lily. I just want her to leave us alone." But I knew this wasn't about money anymore. It was about power. And for the first time, I was ready to fight for mine. The next day at work, I asked my boss, Frank, for a lawyer recommendation. I told him it was a family matter. He understood. He gave me the card for Sophia Reed, a family law attorney. He called her a shark in polite clothing. I called her office that afternoon. We got an appointment for the following week. Just talking to her assistant made me feel stronger. I was taking action, not just accepting my mother's demands. Sophia Reed was sharp, calm, and direct. In her modern office, Ben and I showed her my mother's document. She read it quickly, her eyebrows rising. "This is exceptionally aggressive," she stated. "But it gives us an opportunity." She explained her strategy. "We will agree to a fair post-nuptial, but we will make it mutual. A mirror agreement." She said we should agree to keep family inheritances separate, but the clause would apply to both of our families. This would protect Ben's future inheritance, too, and it would legally separate my mother's assets from my father's. Sophia's plan was brilliant. My mother loved using legal documents as weapons. She would be focused on the parts that controlled me. She might not immediately see the clause that affected her. Sophia drafted a new agreement. It looked very similar on the surface. But the nasty lifestyle clause was gone. And the separation of assets was clearly reciprocal. We would present it as us being modern, fair, and responsible. We were setting a trap with her own favorite tool, a contract. We told my mother that our lawyer was reviewing her document. She was annoyed, but confident. "Fine, but I need it signed by January 2nd. No delays," she ordered. Christmas that year was tense. We went to my parents' house for dinner. The conversation was polite and empty. Every time my mother looked at Ben, I saw the ghost of the words settled in her eyes. I just smiled and passed the potatoes. January 2nd arrived. We met at her lawyer's office downtown. My mother was already there, wearing a crisp suit. She looked victorious. Her lawyer, Mr. Adams, was an older man with a stern face. He expected us to sign and leave. Instead, I placed our version of the agreement on the large wooden table. "Our attorney suggested some mutual adjustments for total fairness," I said. My voice was steady. My mother's smile flickered. Mr. Adams put on his glasses and read our document. After a moment, his eyes flicked up to my mother. He saw the reciprocal clause right away. My mother grew impatient. "What is the issue, Peter? Are the changes minor?" she asked. Mr. Adams cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable. "Eleanor, they have made the terms bilateral. The asset separation applies to both families' holdings." He spoke carefully, as if explaining something difficult. My mother frowned. She did not understand. "What does that mean, exactly?" she asked, her voice tight. Mr. Adams sighed softly. "It means that, should anything happen between you and Charles, your family assets would be legally separated. Your inheritance from your parents would be yours alone. Charles's inheritance from his family would be his alone, just as Lily's would be separate from Ben's." I watched as the meaning slowly dawned on her. The color began to leave her cheeks. The realization hit her like a physical blow. This was not just about controlling my marriage. This was about her own financial security. My father, Charles, came from old money. My mother's family had status, but less wealth. She had always counted on my father's inheritance being theirs. This agreement would legally split it forever. Her own prenup from 35 years ago was a vague, friendly document. Ours was a steel wall. She tried to laugh. It was a dry, hollow sound. "Don't be ridiculous, Lily. Our marriage is not the subject here. Your marriage is. Just sign the original document like we agreed." I looked directly at her. For the first time in my life, I did not look away. "We will only sign a fair agreement, Mother. This is fair. It protects everyone equally. Isn't that what you wanted? I saw a flash of real panic in her eyes before she masked it with anger. Mr. Adams asked to speak with my mother in private. They left the room for 10 minutes. When they returned, my mother's posture was stiff. Her lawyer looked resigned. "We cannot sign this as it is," my mother stated, but her voice lacked its usual power. "Mr. Adams gently said, Eleanor, their version is actually quite standard and fair. Refusing it would be difficult to explain." She was trapped. If she refused, she looked greedy. If she signed, she lost control. "I need time to think," she finally hissed. We left the office. The cold January air felt fresh and clean. The next morning, I went to work. My boss, Frank, called me into his office. "The promotion is official, Lily. You're now senior project manager for the Northridge Mall project." He shook my hand. The raise was significant. I sat at my new desk, in my new office with a window, and felt a surge of pure confidence. My professional world saw my value. It was only my mother who was blind to it. My mother called me every day that week. She pleaded, she argued, she tried to guilt me. "You're tearing this family apart over a piece of paper," she cried. I held firm. "We're offering a fair solution. The choice is yours." Ben stood beside me through every call. Our unity was our strength. Her attempts to divide us only made us closer. Her frustration grew into a silent, cold fury. Then my grandfather called. My mom's father. He was a tough, self-made man who had built a successful manufacturing company. He loved Ben because Ben wasn't afraid of hard work. "Your mother is causing a fuss about some contract," he grumbled over the phone. "Don't you worry about it, Lily girl. Me and your grandma are handling it." I didn't know what he meant, but his voice was a comfort. He had never been fond of my mother's social climbing. On January 10th, my mother finally gave in. She called, her voice flat. "Fine. We'll sign your version. Schedule the meeting." We set it for January 15th. She arrived at the lawyer's office looking thin and tired. The victory she expected had soured. Just as Mr. Adams was about to begin, the office door opened. My grandfather's personal lawyer, a man named Mr. Briggs, walked in. He carried a slim, serious-looking folder. Mr. Briggs nodded at me, then turned to my mother. "Eleanor, before you proceed today, you need to review this." He placed a document in front of her. It was a letter from my grandparents. I will never forget the look on her face as she read it. It stated that due to her recent actions aimed at creating inequality and discord in my marriage, they were immediately restructuring their estate. Their wealth would be split into 3 separate, irrevocable trusts, one for my father, one for me, and one for her. The assets would never be combined. My mother's lifelong assumption that she would control the family money was over. My mother's hands trembled. The paper shook. She had been outmaneuvered completely. Her own parents had cut her off from the family wealth because of her own greed and cruelty. The post-nuptial agreement in front of her was now a meaningless sideshow. The real financial power had just been taken from her. Mr. Adams read the letter, his expression neutral. In a hollow voice, my mother said, "Let's just get this done." She signed our agreement without another word, her signature a shaky scribble. She had lost everything she was fighting for. Ben and I walked out of that building hand in hand. We didn't celebrate. We didn't even speak. We just got into his truck, the same dependable truck my mother sneered at, and drove to our favorite little diner. We ordered 2 slices of apple pie and coffee. We sat in a warm, quiet booth. The silence between us was full of understanding and relief. We had protected our life. We had defended our love. And we had won, not with shouts, but with quiet strength. A week later, my grandfather took Ben and me out for a steak dinner. He clapped Ben on the shoulder. "You're a good man. You build things that last. That's what matters." I looked at my life, my kind husband, my new job title, and the respect that came with it. Our cozy, love-filled home. The constant critical voice in my head was finally silent. My mother had tried to shame me for settling, but I hadn't settled for Ben. I had chosen him. And in choosing him, I chose a life of real partnership, quiet strength, and true respect. That wasn't settling. That was winning the greatest prize of all. And no legal document or cruel toast could ever change that.